Who's starting up?
We go through this every time.
Ew.
I'll start us up.
Okay, you start.
Welcome back to the podcast, guys. Chris, can you believe this is number 40?
It is crazy. 40 weeks already.
40 straight weeks without missing one. Unbelievable.
That's
Can you
pretty
believe that?
cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Pretty soon we're going to be on 1 year coming up here.
Yeah. Big
Ooh,
1 year anniversary.
yeah.
Special anniversary episode.
Yeah. Might have to go for an hour. Make it a special edition, 1 hour long podcast,
Right.
and have like 4 or 5, 6 different topics.
Hmm.
Um, Today's topic, uh, it's two parts. And the first part is we told everybody on episode 39 that we would briefly touch on your bear hunt you had up in upstate New York.
Oh boy.
So let's give everybody the sad news on your
The,
bear hunt
the,
here.
the skinny on the hunt.
Yeah, give us a brief rundown. What happened?
Okay. I'll try to keep it brief, but I left it. I left on a Sunday night at midnight. I got up there about 7 a.m. in the town of Inlet, New York, there at the base of the Adirondack National
Hmm.
Park. And the two fellows I was supposed to meet, they came along at about 7:30 and got me. We went back, set up camp, and we right away at about 9 a.m. we hit the woods and we had an all day sit, and nothing was seen or heard. Uh, and that seems to be the common thread of this this episode
Nothing
that I'm
seen or
telling you
nothing
about.
heard.
We For 3 days we had a whole 3 day hunt. I was there 4 days, but we did 3 day hunt. The first 2 days rained off and on. It was kind of nasty out, uh, but not a washout. It wasn't unhuntable by any means, but beautiful scenery, lots of creeks with beaver ponds and things. Um, and the leaves up there were already starting to change. The weather was a little cooler. I woke up two different mornings. One was 44, the other one was 37, and I
Ooh.
was staying in a tent, so it was chilly.
Hmm.
But the moral of this story was there was no food left in the woods for the bears, or deer for that matter. We went 3 days without seeing a bear or a deer.
Crazy.
Uh,
It's in the mountains, right?
yeah, I mean this was a true hunt. This was no guided thing this was a do it yourself, and we struck out, man. Totally struck out. We went there, and after that first night, that all day sit, and nothing moved at all. I told the other guys, I'm like, we've got to walk tomorrow. We've got to find food, and I did. We walked from the campsite to this what's called the Mitchell Pond, and it's a trail that goes all the way out to this. They assume that it's a natural lake, and um, it's 3.7 miles one way to get to it. So we hiked out to there, and right around the pond, I found crab apples, found a couple apple trees, and they still had a couple apples on them. That was the only thing that we found food wise. But it's a tourist attraction, so there was like hikers and other
Mm.
hunters and stuff, all around the lake. So we didn't want to stay right there and like set up. So we find this trail off to the side of the pond, and it climbed up over the hill all the way to the top, and we got on top of that ridge, and you know I could not find an oak tree to save my life. I was trying to see if there was any acorns around. No acorns. So I started looking a little deeper and found beech nut. Now, beech nut were hitting the ground. They must have hit the ground a week or two before we got there. I would estimate,
Hmm.
because they was all cracked open and all the nuts were gone. I
Gotcha.
find all the hulls that were split open. So at one time there was a bunch of beech nut dropping, and the place is polluted with cherry trees, which is why the bears are there in the first place.
Hmm.
The choke cherries obviously dropped way before we got there because there was absolutely no sign of cherries. Um, when we went back into town, I ran into some of the local hunters and asked them,
They wanted to kill you.
And they didn't know I wasn't from around there,
Ooh, all right.
so I was safe. But I asked them, I said, "Anybody seeing or shooting anything?" They were like, "Nope." And he goes, his exact words were, "If you find the cherries, you might find a bear." And I was like, "Yeah, good luck with that."
Mhm.
He's like, "Yeah, we're having the same issue." So that was the common thread of the whole thing. Now it was
So,
a beautiful scenery.
yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been literally hardcore camping like that since I was a kid in a tent, and cooking on a Coleman stove and all. I mean, it was fun. We had a great time, me and the two guys that went with me, and we made the best of it, just cutting up and having camp and cooking around the fire and
Mhm.
hanging out. I mean, it was a good time.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's always fun.
yeah,
It's always a bonus if you
and
get
I
something,
just
but
kept telling the guys. They were like, "What do you think? What do you think?" I'm like, "Well, I ain't work. I'm not at work, so I'm okay. I got a couple days off." They were kind of disappointed because the one guy got a bear there last year, right across from
mhm.
camp,
Mm,
right exactly where we were staying. But he said last year it was polluted with cherries. So yeah, that
gotcha.
was the difference. That made or broke the whole trip, and it was broken because
Well,
no food.
so basically, long story short, you suck at bear hunting.
I'm an excellent bear hunter. Look at that. Look at that right there.
Yeah, we know. I know. I'm just kidding.
Pope and Young record book bear. Woo!
It's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, I mean,
I've
it
been
was.
there many. I haven't been there. I'm just saying I've been in that situation many times.
Yeah, I mean, when you take a do-it-yourself hunt like that,
Mhm.
and you've never seen the place before, and you go in there, it's basically a scouting trip. And so we did the scouting that we needed to do, and still came up empty. But
That's the way it goes.
now next year, if we would happen to go back there and do that again, why we would know good suspect places to sit and be, providing that there's food.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, if the cherries are hitting the ground and the beech nuts are hitting the ground at the time that we go, it might be a different story. But this time, it's horrible. We didn't even find deer prints or deer scat.
Crazy. I know there's not.
Nothing.
I know that in general there's not many deer per square mile up there.
No, no, it's far and few between, really. But you know, they said every once in a while you that would keep your interest.
Mhm.
You know. Now the one guy did go off on an excursion, and he said that he found an old pile of bear scat, and he seen a couple tails. So he indeed did see a couple deer, I guess. But the other two of us, we did not see a thing except for many, many red squirrels.
Lots of turkeys up there. Not many deer.
I did not see any birds. They have pine tree. I don't know what they are, pine or what do you call them?
Well, there's
What do you call them? Um,
loblolly pines,
I don't know what kind of pines they were.
spruce,
They were
conifers.
probably uh I don't know. I don't know what they were, but we find these trees. There was some kind of pine that I bet you two of us couldn't reach around them. Possibly a third person,
Wow.
all hands connected, may or may not be able to touch each other's hands. They were that big, and
So
I
there was
would.
no branches down low. It was all
No,
just
they
trunk.
they were straight as a freaking telephone pole, man. And I bet you we find some that were 200 feet tall.
Mm. Wow.
I would that they were easily 100 feet
Mhm.
because we was on the side of a mountain, and those things reached so high to get sunlight. And that's another reason why there wasn't any food down low.
Mhm.
Those things went up and branched out, and there was a big canopy.
So you were hunting all big woods
Yeah, it
then.
was big woods.
Gotcha.
I was afraid to get separated from anybody because I mean there was absolutely no internet, no phone, no nothing. We were whistling back and forth to each other,
Mhm.
you know.
Should have
Um
had like two-way radios.
well, that's what I said to the guys. Don't two-way radios work here? And he's like, "You know what? We never tried that." I'm like,
Yeah, I have a set.
"Come on.
Yeah, they work good.
Let's get into the technology here,
Yeah, just in case
So,
you never know when you need it.
yeah. I mean, cuz we we the last night in. We went in, they dropped me off first. Another guy went ahead of me, and a third guy went out ahead of him. And the third guy got antsy and had to use the restroom. And he did this big loop out around us and went back to camp. And me and the other guys waiting, waiting, waiting. It's getting dark. It's getting dark. All I got is a pen light. The other guy didn't even have a flashlight, you know. Uh, so we're waiting, we're waiting, waiting. And I told him, I said, you know what, we better get back to camp and regroup. And if we need to come back for him or whatever, listen, if he's lost, listen for 3 shots or, gather up some flashlights, go back looking for him or whatever. You know, we get back to camp and he was in the outhouse.
He
that
had to
was the
go.
funny. That was the funniest part of this of the whole story.
You
And
gotta
the
go. You
the
gotta
other
go.
dude was so mad at him. He cursed him out, but he got over it pretty quick. We were just
Yeah.
happy everybody was safe. But
Yeah.
so,
All
okay,
right.
that was my brief story. But in a couple weeks here, I'm going down to see Dave, and we're gonna go Sitka hunting in the eastern shore of Maryland.
Yes, we are. So you
And
can
we're
get
gonna fill coolers
so you can
full
get
of meat.
so you can get beat up by locals.
I'm gonna tell them you're from PA.
Yeah, I will kill you. All right. So that's your bear hunt.
Yeah,
Um,
what you got?
I want to mention this real quick. Episode 41 next Wednesday. I hope everybody tunes in, or Sunday. I hope everybody next tunes into that one. That's all going to be about the October Law. So that
Hopefully, we have some stories to tell by then too.
we will, because hunting season starts in PA this weekend, so we'll be
Yep,
both there.
yep,
And I just want to talk on the October Law next weekend or
mm,
next episode. So
yeah,
the second part of this, though, is I want to talk about habitat improvements that we make on our properties, private land, obviously. Um, that you can kind of make you kind of like self-destruct your property here because one, you make too many improvements, or two, you get antsy and you can't stop checking your improvements, so you spook all the deer. Um,
yeah,
so I want to run down on this, just on some brief things, and I see it all the time on consulting. But I mean, everybody does it. In the past, you get excited and stuff. So
yeah,
I'll break it down, then you can chime in. But when the biggest factor on this, everybody that's listening, is you have to be careful, you know, bumping deer off your property. If you continuously bump them off, they're just going to go somewhere else. What happens is people get excited, they make improvements on their land, especially food plots. If you start to do that, if you all you let's say all you do is plant a food plot on your property, you're going to attract deer. You don't have to do anything else. You're going to attract more wildlife. Well, what happens then? If you attract more wildlife, there's more chances of you spooking deer because
yep,
there's more wildlife there to spook,
yep. More conflict.
more conflict. So there's more interaction, there's more deer. You when you place food on a property, it offsets bedding. Where there's food, deer are going to want to bed fairly close to that because there's food there. So you're going to rearrange sometimes the bedding where the deer are bedding. So now you have food, you have more deer that can be in the food to spook. Obviously, most times you're going to hunt over that food. So how are you going to get in and out of it? But you know what the biggest factor in this is that people cannot stop checking their food plot. They can't
Yeah,
stop checking it
checking for
because
germination, checking for height.
right, because they're excited. It's exciting to watch it grow, but you can't do that. You cannot go in your woods constantly every day, once a week, couple times a week. You cannot do that. Most times you are going to bump a deer and you're not even going to know it. And then in your mind, you're not seeing deer. This place sucks. Well, no, it's because you cannot stay out of the freaking woods.
Yeah,
You cannot do that. You have to let it go. You can't, just because you plant something, you can't, doesn't mean they're going to be there no matter what. You, the more improvements you do on your property, actually the worse you can make it because you're constantly spooking deer. right?
I can agree with that. I try to I try to let my trail camera soak at least 2 weeks before I check them.
Hmm.
So I just go in there once every 2 weeks, gather up the card, and get out. Now I did have to go in at the beginning of this week since I was on that bear hunt, and I went out and hung the stands for PA this week, a couple stands. Um, but that's the last I'm going to see of it till I'm actually sitting in the stand.
Hmm.
Um, it's just not a good idea to frequent often, especially if you know you've got a good shooter on camera
Hmm.
somewhere. That deer could be anywhere, and like you just said, they're probably going to see you before you see them. So you bump him off. That might be the last time he's ever on the property. You just never know.
And let's think real quick too. Let's say you, like you just said, you have a shooter. Well, let's say that we don't have a shooter because we haven't seen one on camera.
Right.
It could be that you're spooking them off and they're just not in there. You
Right.
pushed them off, right? So if you
Hmm.
stop checking it so much, maybe you could have a shooter.
Could possibly. Yeah. Yeah. If you're in there spreading scent, you know, if a deer comes across your line of travel, that's a big misnomer to them. They don't want to be in that area.
I think it's
Especially if it's a mature deer.
oh yeah,
You
yeah,
can
yeah.
get away with 2-year-olds or whatever. And I mean, if that's what you want to shoot, that's fine. But I
Well,
mean,
they
if
can
you're
only take so much too.
yeah, but I mean, if you're looking for a really good one, and you better be a ghost.
I think it's better that they see you and not smell you. If they
It-
smell you, I think it's over. If you're just a person walking and they see you and they see you far away and you bump them,
yeah,
I think that's better than if you say if you're up close to them or something and they smell you.
yeah, because the unknown to them is very spooky.
They see
Um,
people all the time.
if they're seeing you, like if you're like for instance, when I'm over at the destination plot and I'm mowing, deer still come into the plot with me. They hear that engine roaring. They know they're in no danger. They just keep on eating until they get
Hmm.
tired and they leave.
Well, they see
And
that all the time.
they see it. They see it happening. But if you're in a tree and you're 10, 12, 14 feet above them and they smell you, but they don't see you, that freaks them out, man.
Hmm.
That's when they start blowing and stomping and all that stuff. That's, I would have to agree with your comment. Yeah. I think if they see you, not necessarily hanging in a tree and they see you,
Yeah.
that's not a good thing.
Right.
But if you're just checking your plot or something and you walk through, it's
Yeah,
probably
because I mean, you don't know where that deer could be. I mean, you could make bedding areas, but that deer at the end of the day is going to bed where it wants. I mean, how many
yeah,
times have we seen where a buck or something is just decides to plop down in the middle of your food plot?
right.
Well, all of a sudden you're coming behind a patch of woods or something. The deer hears you. It's gonna take off, and you never even knew it was there.
Yeah, I literally when I set up those stands Monday night, the property owner was in there cutting some trees. The
Mm,
property owner right up against me. He was cutting some small firewood and stuff up with a chainsaw. And while he was doing that, I was hanging a chain on stand there on the tree. And as he was leaving, I'm talking like he shut the saw off, and 10 minutes later, I'm down the tree line. Now I'm standing up a ladder stand, and I've got the thing up in the air, and I haven't chunked it back against the tree yet. But for some whatever reason, I don't know if it caught my eye or what, or I heard something. I looked to my right, and two bucks come right out of the brush line, walked through my screening, and out into the field.
hmm.
I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me? I'm standing right here." Obviously, the wind was blowing the other way.
That was Doge, right?
No, 2 bucks,
Oh, $2.
2 bucks, a half rack, and a spike.
Hmm.
Um, the half rack looked like he's probably second year because he had a nice one side, and the other side was all goofy. But they come right out, went right underneath. Not only did the landowner just get done cutting with the chainsaw 10 minutes ago, but I just hung a stand right where they came out.
Mhm.
So like I can't believe that I had rubber boots on, but I'm surprised they didn't smell where I walked back and forth along the tree line, you know.
Yeah. Well, I
But
mean,
they just zipped right across and went out and was starting to eat my fall plot.
you can look at it too this way. You're in an area where there's a lot of visitors. There's a lot of human traffic, so
There is.
they tend to smell people.
They sort of get
Yeah.
used to it.
Yeah. If you're in
But if
a
I'm hunting,
oh,
if
it's
I'm
different.
over there hanging from a tree,
Oh,
and
it's
if they
game.
would ever catch a whiff of me,
Yeah, it's done.
whoa,
Done for.
yeah, it's crazy. Now
Yeah.
last year I had this one crazy doe that spotted me up in a tree from across the plot. And I don't know what that is, maybe 80 yards away or something. She would walk through my screening and look over there. She marked me.
Mhm.
I must have stuck out to her somehow. She's seen me
Yep.
and remembered that. And every time I was in that tree, if that particular deer came to the plot, she stood across the plot and stared at me and stomped her foot.
Mhm.
And then she would walk out of the plot and walk the whole way around and go to the other side.
Yeah.
She would
I
go right around me. She
yeah.
knew I was there.
I've
Ain't that
seen I've seen that
crazy?
I've seen that many times. I'd say probably 10 years ago or so, I was hunting and I was in this one tree and this trail was out in front of me like 20 yards or whatever. Well, I got pinned one time. The deer
Uh,
blew out, whatever. I hunted there like a couple days later. They did the same thing you did, right? I'm
yeah.
like, oh man, I'll let it rest or something. So I waited like 2 weeks and the deer came back again through that same trail,
Yep.
pinned me again.
Looked
So I,
right
s-
up.
so I said, okay, I'll fix this problem. I shifted my stand like 15 feet to another tree. They came out and I was able to shoot one.
There you
But
go.
they will pin you in that one
Yep.
spot.
Yeah. So the moral of the story, what Dave's talking about here, is pattern the deer. Don't let the deer
Mhm.
pattern you.
Oh, they
If you're
will
going
pattern
in
you.
and out, if you're going in and out and checking on things, they're gonna pattern you.
Mhm.
You know, change it up, do it less often, stay
Yeah.
out if you can,
Yeah. The
for
only
sure.
time, like, I mean, in the off season, like, you're growing a food plot or something, it's not hunting season. I mean,
Right.
what do you need to check the plot for? I mean,
Yeah.
just let it grow. I mean, if you check it one time, let it go. And,
Yeah.
you,
I mean, if
if
it's
you have,
July and August, it probably
who cares?
doesn't matter. But
Yeah, who cares?
they're getting into fall patterns now, and you don't want to bust that up.
No, that's a good point.
If
Yeah.
if they're
Fall.
daylighting and
Hmm.
you've got them on camera and they're hitting mock scrapes and stuff, do not get rid of them.
Yeah.
Keep
Cause
them on your
they're,
property as much as you can.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Like you said, they're shifting into
Yep.
fall areas, and if you're bumping them out of that new area, they're just going to go someplace else.
Yep. They'll go somewhere else, and your neighbor that you don't like across the way will shoot one
Well,
and upset you.
let's just give it a good example of what we talked about before the podcast started. We talked about Saturday opening day.
Yeah.
I asked you if you were going, and you're making a educated decision to not hunt that one spot in the mornings,
Right.
because if you go over there, you're just going to bump them out. You're
Yes.
waiting to hunt till the afternoon.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the type of choices that people need to make. I mean, yeah, I mean, I bet you are excited, be like, man, I want to go over there in the
Yeah.
morning.
I would
But
love to spend all day over there, but
right, but it's not the right thing to do.
yeah, because I have 100 daylight pictures of bucks on my mock scrape,
Hmm.
and they're like 7:40 in the morning,
Hmm.
you know. But how do I get to that stand?
Yeah.
I've got to walk through the woods stealthily,
Hmm.
and the field edge is right there.
You know
Yeah,
they're going to be in there.
I have screening up and all, but they're either going to be bedded on the edge of that field or they're going to be in the field.
Hmm.
And there's no way for me to get in there. There it's just the way the lay of the land is. I don't have an entrance,
Yeah, it's not
a
worth it.
good entrance. You know,
Yeah.
so it's definitely an evening spot. Now, excuse me, my property down here below the house. Now, I have little kill plots down there, but they don't necessarily lay right there. Every once in a while, I'll bust one, but majority of the time, I will be able to make it, get up in my stand, and at first light, they'll start moving by me. So I've known that from a lot of years. They've educated me.
Mhm,
So
mhm, mhm.
yeah, like you said, making decisions. That's another thing. Your camera's your best friend at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if you're using cell cams,
Yeah,
I mean that'll tell you when they're, obviously they can walk many places
yeah,
besides in
but
front of it, but it gives you a good indication.
yep, keep an eye on the timeline of what when the deer are moving,
Mhm.
and tell you whether or not you can hunt that in the morning.
Yeah.
You know whether or not you can get in undetected.
Yeah, I mean, each food plot, each area is going to be
Now,
different. Depends where they're bedded at and all that.
there's something we need to talk about sometime too. Not today, obviously, because we're running out of time. But when we set up trail cameras, what direction do we set them? You know, how do we set up a camera for intel to hunt? We need to do something like that.
Well, let's tie that into the October law.
Okay. Yeah, because let me write that down too while I'm
Pattern
thinking about.
patterning deer in the October law using trail cameras. Yeah, about time you come up with something, everybody. Make sure everybody comments down below, gets on this guy coming up with ideas.
I gotta think of everything.
All right. But yeah, so long story short, stop checking your freaking food plots. Let them grow, let them go, just like a deer, just like the deer. Let them grow, let them go, let them grow. It's the same
Yeah,
with the food plot. It's not going to change in a day. You don't need to check it every single day and take pictures and walk through your property. It's the biggest devastation that you can do is constantly checking your plots, walking through the woods, hunting in areas that you're going to bust deer out. You can't continue to do that. You'll push the deer off to your neighbors. Your neighbors will shoot them, and then you're left in the dark wondering why you have no deer, you have no big bucks. It's because you push them off, the neighbors shoot them, or they just go elsewhere and they're on your property at nighttime. And if they're on your
yeah,
property at nighttime, doesn't help you at all because you can't kill them unless you're hunting illegally, and we don't want anybody to do that. So,
no,
um, you have to be smart about it. Habitat improvements 100% can make your property worse, and it's not necessarily because of the improvement. It's because of the human intrusion factor.
yep. Which will tie into next week's
Yeah,
because
let's
I
do
know
it.
where you're going with this.
Yep. So this podcast is going to come out on Sunday, which will be after PA's archery season opener. But
Yes.
I wish everybody good luck. Me and you will be out. It's supposed to be
Yep.
good weather, and hopefully we have some updates next week.
Yeah. If nothing else, I'm hoping to lay a doe down
There
right
you go.
away.
There you go.
Right away.
All right.
Okay, guys. We'll
39 wrapped up.
see you on the next one.
No,
It's
sorry, 40.
40.
Yeah, 40.
40.
40 wrapped up.
40, like your age.
Whatever. Later.